Hey everybody, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Frank.
So today we're going to take you behind the headstock back to 2006, late 2006, when we found out we were going to do a limited edition Guitar of the Week program, and we had about 6 weeks to figure it out. So stick around, we're going to tell you how we figured that all out.
Go behind the headstock with Kevin and Frank, two ex-Gibson employees talking about guitars and the guitar industry with an inside perspective.
All right, so Frank, this is going back a number of years. I'm trying to remember, and I looked through a lot of my documentation. I can't pin down the exact day we found out from our boss, who had a meeting with the CEO of the company, right? He came back from a meeting and basically said, hey guys, we're going to do a Guitar of the Week program, 400 units a piece every week.
Yeah. It's kind of, like trying to remember back that's kind of how I started doing what I did for the last, 5 years at Gibson, pretty much, or really 10 years as that. But, Jeff Allen said, hey, we got to do this and I need some help. So he created a position called the new product supervisor. And so I had to figure out bills of materials, spec sheets, and work with you and marketing and everybody involved. The team got together at that point.
But remember, this might have been around Thanksgiving. And we were also told we're going to launch this at NAMM.
Right. Yeah, no warning.
So, yeah. But in addition to that, it's funny. I'll show some documentation later. We already had a ton of new product we were going to show at the NAMM show that we had started on in about June.
Right.
And we are also working on a bunch of limited editions already for Yamaha, our Japan distributor, Guitar Center, and Musician's Friend. I mean, a ton. I have a list. I'll show us in a minute.
Okay.
So now. And we also had a
portion of our business, those three guys, three distributors.
Yep.
Were a big portion of production,
And we were cranking out limited editions like crazy, which probably led to the idea of let's go crazy next year and do something that no one's ever done before, a new guitar every week that's a limited edition in addition to our core product. And there were so many of them, it's funny that we didn't even add them to our regular price list. I had to make a separate Guitar of the Week price list because it wouldn't all fit on one.
Right. Yeah.
So
we started with like 48 guitars. We took a few weeks off.
Yep.
Because we weren't going to launch it until NAMM, which means it wouldn't, we wouldn't want to start in the middle of that month kind of thing, so. And then, of course, we shut down for Christmas and July 4th every year, so we didn't count those weeks.
Yep.
So I think we came up with 48 models we had to come up with, right?
So it was basically you and I going, what the hell do we do? So we knew in order to have any kind of models ready for the NAMM show, we really couldn't do anything with new tooling, new body shapes.
Yeah, any really new parts. I mean, purchasing,
right.
90 days out basically on everything, So if you wanted new plastics or new inlays or new anything, it was 90 days before you could get any of that stuff,
Right. Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, we're going to have to change specs or paint.
Yep.
Or, pickups. We'll put different combinations in of what we don't normally offer. That sort of thing became, what the answer, basically. All right, we start out with paint. That's something we can control. Paint something a different color, And so that's how it started that way, right?
Yeah, we basically just started putting pencil to paper, figuring out all these different models and options that we had. But so looking back on some of my documents, what we decided to do, and I don't know how we could have done it any other way, we basically did it like 12 different models at a time. So it was basically we did a quarter at a time. So at the 2027 NAMM show, we debuted the first 12
The
guitars of the
2007.
week.
2007.
Oh, what did I say? 2027?
Yeah, we ain't
Oh,
there
God.
yet.
You know, it's New Year's Day, by the way, just to put some.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah. Sorry about that. 2007, long time ago.
It was.
Yep.
Just got longer.
Yeah.
Just got another year.
I mean, Frank, so looking back on some of those documents, I can't believe we put all these models together. Let me, well, how about I start here? All right, so here's what's interesting. Here's our display at NAMM 2007. What's interesting is, all right, we have the digital guitar here.
Yep.
We hadn't done the robot yet, but the digital guitar was there with its hexaphonic pickup. It was six humbuckers in one, right? Oh God, the thing was awful. So much crosstalk between each string. But guitars of the week are here. So we have a 61 SG in gold with gold hardware. Again,
In black.
yeah, right, that we'd never done before. So this was you and I going, well, so here's a great example of us taking existing models and modifying them in ways that, but we had never done before. So we never did a black 61 SG, and it's got gold hardware, and we actually double antiqued the finish.
Okay.
Which was something really cool that we were doing on the Classic Customs. We were double antiquing some things at that time. Now over here, we brought back the Explorer Pro, which was a great model.
Right.
It just didn't do so hot the first time out of the gate. I think it was overpriced, so we got a little more reasonable with that.
Right. And that had a smaller body so we could bind it. Right. We had to shrink the body down because the binding was only a certain length that we used, so it wouldn't make it all the way around a regular Explorer body. So I think they found some in the 70s and they split the binding in the middle of it. They had a seam on it.
No kidding.
Yeah, if you look some old 70s Explorers, they have binding, but there's a seam at the end pin where the strap button is. They cut it and spliced it in and put another piece around because it wasn't long enough to make it all the way around.
Wow.
So when we shrunk the body, those pieces were long enough to make it all the way around. We didn't have to try to splice it.
So it didn't start off with the intention of having a smaller body.
No, it started off being bound. It wanted to be bound. We wanted a bound Explorer, so the only way to bind it was to shrink it. And it kind of looked cool, shrunk anyway.
Oh yeah. Oh, it totally worked. But I just love that the size of the body was determined by the piece of plastic going around the top.
Yeah, that's all we had,
I love it. Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't available to get new stuff, especially that fast. Like you were saying, Yeah. We had to do these quickly,
Yep. And then over here is the Tom Morgan painted Classic, I think, right?
Yeah. The Classic Antique or something, right?
Yep. Now, what's funny is, so the Classic Antique came out in about, it might have been Summer NAMM of 2006.
Okay.
But I'm going to show you later. I have documentation of when models went into the system.
Right.
So I think it was like April 2006, which figures about right to be ahead of time for Summer NAMM.
Sure.
And then we did a Les Paul Classic Antique with a reverse burst.
Right.
I was kind of ripping off a PRS finish with that. And Chris Roberts did a beautiful job with that. Yep. Les Paul Supreme Bass and Natural.
SG Supreme Bass.
What did I say?
Les Paul.
Oh, sorry. SG Supreme Bass, yes. Over here, you can kind of see peeking through a Firebird. I think it was a Zebrawood Firebird.
I can't see that.
All right, hold on. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, that's a Thunderbird.
Yep, the Zebrawood T-Bird. And then the BFG.
we did 3 limited editions of BFGs: gold, ink, and I think we might have done some silver burst.
Yeah, I think we did a silver burst.
Right, and then we got the SG3 over here.
Right.
We have I think this is a Billy Joe Armstrong Jr.
Could have been. Yeah.
Yep. And I got another picture, another Explorer Pro.
Right. And that's the solid SG, a solid maple. That's why we're showing the back, because it's 2 maple pieces.
Les Paul Classic Custom right there. We'll get in deeper with all these other models. Now here's something really cool. These were 3 SG Selects. Remember those? We did 5A bodies.
Oh yeah.
And 3-piece 5A maple necks.
Yep.
And I had made special for the NAMM show these displays. See this Gibson sign up here?
Right.
And it had a downward light, and they rotated. So these 3 SG Selects rotated. Remember they kept turning around 360?
Wow. Nice.
And then we have down here the Melody Makers.
That's the Melody Maker boxes you were talking about.
Yep, remember that? That was awesome.
Yeah.
Now here's what's funny, Frank. Look, AdMart made those signs for me, Ravi at AdMart. I never saw those again. They never made it back to Nashville. Someone stole them.
Really?
They probably ended up in the entertainment relations office in Beverly Hills.
Probably, yeah.
I never found them again. I looked and looked and looked forever because they were so cool.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. All right. Let me back out of this. Okay. I'm going to go to this slide. I'm showing this because if you go on the internet to figure out the list and the timing of all the guitars of the week,
right,
they're wrong. And this
Something
actually came from our website.
Either production constraints or purchasing constraints, or parts weren't going to make it in time, so we moved something back. So yeah, it was kind of a living document, basically, per quarter. Once we locked down each quarter, like you said,
But it looks like this list is correct from week 13 on for the most part. Week 1 through 12 is a little different from the price lists that I have. Okay. And I think I found out the reason why the web team at the end of all of this, when they made the list, because there's some obvious modifications they had to make to the list, I'll quote later. But 1 through 12 is not correct. So if you're Googling out there, and there's a lot of other websites that are listing all the models, week 1 through 12 isn't necessarily correct. Okay. For instance, I found some images out there. This does not show the first 12, but it's interesting to see how people have created other images out there of the guitars of the week. And what's interesting is this is a different dealer. This is the end of it, Frank, right? Going to week 48.
Right.
Week 45 did not happen.
Well, that's because it was Joan Jett, right?
That's the Joan Jett Melody Maker.
And it was much too big for this deal, right?
Yep. I don't know why it was on our list originally, but I remember thinking Joan's models, we shouldn't have a signature model on the list, right? So we eventually pulled it, and there was no week 45 because eventually we went full on with Joan Jett's first signature model.
Yeah, we made a lot of those, right?
Oh yeah, and Joan was a dream to deal with. She was great.
Super cool
Yep,
lady. Yep, yep,
yep.
yep.
She was
Perfect.
so sweet, so nice. I hope I don't ruin her
Yeah,
reputation. She's total
she mailed
badass though.
it to us. We got to check out her original guitar, and she mailed it to us.
I
And
have pictures of me and Scotty playing it in my office.
it had a pickup in it. Was called the Red Roads. I think it was called the Velvet Hammer
The
pickup.
Velvet Hammer. Yep.
Yep. And it was amazing sounded. And we actually took all the readings off the pickup, and that's why we put a Birchbucker 3
Yep.
in her guitar, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Because that
right.
was close, very close to the readings we got off the Velvet Hammer. And it wound up sounding good, so it must have been real close.
All right, so in other episodes, we'll deep dive on all these models, but I don't know, looking back, Frank, we came up with some cool models for that whole program.
I think so,
hell yeah.
without, killing production, and, some were really cool. I see some of them there. They're like, kind of tributes to the Ace Frehley kind of thing. And then
Totally, yeah.
Alan Collins, the Explorer.
Yep.
I remember we made the mahogany look like Karina by using white pore filler to make it lighter. And we used that little vibrola on there, that little trem from the SGs usually they were on, but Alan had one on his original Explorer. And so we put it on there as a kind of a tribute to Alan Collins.
All right, I'm going to share a document. As I mentioned earlier, can you see that okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. I found a list. Week 1, SG Standard Silver Burst. Now, whereas other lists... Other lists show the SG Supreme Bass and Natural as week 1. But I specifically remember I want to come out swinging. I wanted to present a model week 1 that was just wow, right?
Right.
And that one sold out at the NAMM show within probably an hour and a half. All 400 units were gone, right? So, all right. So, Frank, what I found is in August, as we were adding new models in per quarter, again, it still reiterates here that the SG Standard was first.
Right.
But what's weird is the features is missing, and I think I found out why. I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, we went all the way to week 47. So that means at this point, the Joan Jett Melody Maker was off the list.
Okay.
In August. We already made that point. But there's the full list according to our official price list right there. And that Supreme Bass actually ended up in week 12, not week 1.
Okay.
But why did our web team think that was number 1? So at some point I ran a report, and in our system it would tell us when a certain model was created.
In other words, the SKU went in the system, right?
Correct. Now, our new system of back then was like Great Plains. Nothing predated the launch of Great Plains. So whenever that came into effect, let's say it was 2001, nothing was older than 2001 in the system. Okay.
Right.
But this, I kind of truncated this whole list. But you can see in 2006, here's the Les Paul Classic Antiques and the Classic Customs that we brought in September. Those Les Paul BFGs and the Limiteds. I think this is us preparing properly for Winter NAMM in September. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
All right. SG3s, SG Selects, there they are. They got approved in October The Melody Makers, which was a late edition, December 13th. Like, this is about
But
the time
they
where...
weren't part of our launch, though. That was just new product coming on board for NAMM.
Right. What I'm trying to say is this was all new product for that year, though, in addition to the Guitar of the Week. And then we did a special run of 2 pickups, I think, for GC and MF. All right. Then we get into the Guitars of the Week.
Oh, there you go.
December 27th, they went into the system.
Wow.
And think, Frank, when did we start shipping to the NAMM show? It was probably the first week of...
probably got shipped to our hotel. Back in those days, we were shipping guitars to the hotel like the day before NAMM. And we would get them all shipped to the Holiday Inn in Anaheim and have to schlep them all over. Remember?
We did do that one year. We had them shipped to the hotel, and we had a van, and we carried them all in. That's right.
That was that year. Look, they didn't get approved till then. When was NAMM? It was it barely made it for us to even,
third week of January. So to get prototypes made, I mean, we would show the prototypes made to get them approved, but to get NAMM showable prototypes. Right. And remember, when we would show these to the CEO, sometimes he'd put his fingerprint on it and change specs. So sometimes we had to change things real quick. So, man, we were under the gun.
Right.
Okay. Now, here's what's funny. Where's the SG Silverburst on this list? It's not there.
Huh.
But I found it in another report over here. Now, at some point when I ran this report, I discontinued the Silverburst. So that went into a different type. I probably filtered this by live models. And I think, Frank, the reason I discontinued the Silverburst so fast was it sold out at the NAMM show. And we oversold it, right? This was only 400 units. We probably took orders for 800. And we had to tell people, stop, it's done. Wow. So I shut it off in the system so you couldn't even enter a back order for it.
Right.
So it fell off the list at some point. So if you're the web team and trying to go back and create a whole list of guitars of the week, look at what the first one listed is.
Right.
And that's what they put as number 1.
That's why it's listed that way in the in that first list, you said.
Yep. So it doesn't exactly follow this whole, but it's pretty close anyway. So again, that kind of helps solve the mystery of the Silverburst, why it's on some list and why it isn't. Because it sold out so fast, right?
It was a good one to start with, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, it was killer. So, all right, so let's jump into, let me go back to my PowerPoint. Let's talk about the first 3 models that we did put on the list here, because there we go. Look at that.
Yeah, that was a natural. Easy.
So at this time, the guy in Tool was playing an old Les Paul Custom Silverburst. And this wasn't even on our radar per se when we were putting some of these models together. It was Chris Roberts who came walking into my office one day and goes, "Hey man, what do you think of this?" Yeah. And from what I could remember, even historically, we never did a Silverburst SG, and I don't know why, because when you look at it, it makes all the sense in the world, right?
Yeah. The color was made for it.
Oh my God, that's why we put it number 1. We wanted to come out of the gate swinging, just knocking people out, right? Do I have a back shot? No, okay, I don't have a back shot. But we kept the back black.
Yeah. I mean, the original Silverburst, I think they bursted both sides on the Les Paul Customs.
Yep, and V's and stuff.
They bursted the neck and the back of the headstock and all kind of crazy stuff. But we decided just to run it as ebony so we could bust it out,
Yep. Yep, we had to make 400 and make 400 fast.
Right.
But this started really the craze of Silverburst. We
Yeah.
started making an option of Silverburst in everything, and we
Yeah.
sold the crap out of it.
You know, we never did a Silver Burst T-Bird. We probably should have done that. That would have looked good.
That would have looked pretty cool. Yeah, I agree. All right.
There you go, Jim. It's Jim DeCola, if you're listening.
There you go, Jim.
There you go.
Perfect,
No charge.
right?
Enjoy. The SG3.
So the second model I had listed was the SG3. You and I had gone through a couple iterations of this before we came to what was going to come out of production. And there's the back. It was satin, right? Yeah, that's satin.
Yeah.
We did some gloss versions. Again, if you watch our satin or faded SG episode, it was just such a hit to do faded SGs in satin finish. So
Yeah. But that's a nice, clean-looking guitar, you know?
it is a good-looking guitar, right?
Yeah, we were messing around with those blade pickups in electronics when I was working there.
Yep.
And
hey, let me ask you about that. I mean, those were our pickups, right? We didn't outsource them.
yeah, no, we made them. We made them there. I made them at electronics department.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I had to. It was difficult because we have to actually drilled into the blade and tapped it to hold the pickup together. But it was a cool little pickup, and it sounded good. And we put the chicken head knob on there for 6 positions.
Yep.
We could get 6 positions out of that. I wanted one more than the Strat, you know.
Yep.
I always wanted the neck and the rear pickup at the same time.
It's always a cool option, right? Or all three.
Yeah. Right.
So I always wanted to do a version of the old Melody Maker. Where this really came from was that.
Right.
I always loved Pelham Blue, and I always kept my eyes open to get one of these. So that's kind of where that started. Again, we knew that we had SG bodies already. It was just a matter of, okay, let's do a 3 pickup single coil, maybe with the short vibrola. I don't know, but we knew it was pretty doable. And then here's one with 3 pickups. It's just like, oh my God, that makes so much sense, right? So
yeah,
that's kind of where my inspiration came from the start with that. And you and I just kind of went off. But I want to show something here. Frank, I still have the prototype.
Really?
Yep. Do you remember what the prototype looked like?
No.
You're going to remember. Okay.
Fireburst, I remember that. Ooh, I slanted the pickup.
We did the slanted pickup at first. Right. And look, remember we did a Strat bridge.
Was that the bridge I did the tone enhancer on the back, the brass piece?
Yep. We got a 5-way on there.
Oh, wow. Right. Yeah, I had this idea that we could tap that piece and use the bridge screws instead of screwing it into the wood. We squashed the whole body by using machine screws and tapping them into the brass piece on the back. And so that brass piece, instead of string ferrules, I didn't want to do string ferrules and all that.
It's like, it's recessed.
Yeah. So the ball of the string would go in there and not hit your shirt or whatever, you know.
Yep. Now, what's funny is I've seen some people talking about getting these in the production models. I still do love that Strat bridge and the 5-way on there, though. I think that looks pretty cool. And the slant.
It was a good-looking guitar, man.
Hell yeah.
It sounded great. It sounded amazing.
Yep.
You know,
now a lot of people were asking about the pickups. That's why I was asking you specifically, because I had a feeling we did all that in-house.
Yep, yeah, those were ours.
I went to change them out one time.
Right.
And this is routed pretty tight in the body, too.
It's way more narrow than a regular pickup, right?
But it looks like the production model, they did like a swimming pool.
Oh, inside the body?
Right. So if you have a production model, you can swap out the pickups with regular Fender or Seymours that are a little fatter than that. These are a little skinnier.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Wow, I'm glad you got that.
I took this home to gig test it, and I forgot to bring it back.
It's still testing. Testing continues.
So if they need to do a reissue,
Yeah, you can help them out.
That'll be the second version of that, right?
I thought that was a good idea, doing that.
Yeah.
String through the body and squashing it together like that.
Yeah, that was all you too. You said, "Hey, check this out." I'm like, "This is great. Let's go with it."
Yeah, it was fun. It was good.
We really didn't have too much time to overthink it, you know?
Yeah. And towards the end, when we started getting into different projects, Henry really got us into the, testing and golden samples. And, we did so many different tests. We built a machine that plucked the string the same way every time.
It was the mother plucker.
Yeah, the mother plucker. And the guys in the pattern shop built it, Gary and George and Corey and those guys. And they put it together, and it would you could pick it up like a hammer, and it would drop down, and it would pluck the string exactly the same time every time.
And we used that a lot on the digital guitar too.
We tested. We were doing these cryogenic fret wire. I don't know where Ron got it, the purchasing guy. It was cryogenic fret wire. They froze it, and it did something to the metal in the frets, and it made it like indestructible. And we were like, "Really? Indestructible?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, watch the difference." So we set up one of the CNC machines over the weekend. We got a fingerboard. We got 2 fingerboards, and we had regular frets in, and we had the one with the cryogenic frets. And we made it like a little finger that came down on the CNC, and it would hit the string. We put a string across it, the frets, and it would hit the string like you're simulating somebody fretting a guitar. Right. And it would move it just a little bit, like wiggle it. So it had a rubber tip on it, so it would come down, grab the string, push it down, and wiggle it a little bit and come back. And we just set it and let it go the whole weekend. Right? And it did both frets. The regular fret wire was pretty much worn out. We let it go. It was like over 100 and something thousand cycles.
Right.
And there was like 2,000 wear on this cryogenic fret wire.
Wow.
Like it looked like brand new. We're like, did the test not work? And we had like a camera where we could see it. It worked. The other fret was worn out. And this one wasn't. And it really made a difference. But I don't think the Plek machines liked it. So we never went. Yeah. It was hard. It wore out the cutters on the Plek machines.
Yeah, how do you really shape your frets, right? If it's that tough.
Yeah, you can make it too tough, right? It became difficult to deal with. But as far as everlasting frets, it was great.
Yep.
I remember cryogenically they froze it. And we did that for a while. We did it before we got a lot of the Pleks. When we were just doing regular fret dressing. And it was it was easy to dress, but it didn't wear. It didn't wear out. I remember cryogenic frets, frozen.
That's interesting. I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was Ronnie Moe, purchasing guy, got that.
We're gonna have him on soon, hopefully.
Yeah. That's the beauty of this, is we're still friends with a lot of people. Yeah. So.
All right, let's look at the third guitar in the lineup there after the SG. And then week 3 that we saw earlier in the NAMM booth photos there, the SG61 in ebony, gold hardware.
Yeah, what a classic look. I dressed up.
Great looking guitar. Like, how did we not do that in the past? We probably did at some point, but man, I don't remember really, but it just makes so much sense.
For a long time, we were kind of doing things the old way, And I remember even when we did some of these new things, I ran into some of the old timers at Gibson would be like, no, that head veneer is not supposed to go on that kind of model. We never do that on a SG, or, we never use that inlay on a Les Paul, or, I got pushback from people who were protective of the history. So until we had to, we didn't really mess around with things like that,
Right. I mean, we
And that-
respected the history, yeah, but sometimes we wanted to break history, you
Well, I
know?
mean, truth be told, I mean, honestly, Kevin, the deal is in production, the SG61 only came in Heritage Cherry.
Right.
So if you had a grain flaw or something that didn't look great on the body, what did you do with it? It couldn't be an SG standard. It's a totally different body. So what they began to pile up. So SG61s that got kicked out for, only because of cosmetic flaws, nothing structural. But sometimes, a piece of wood would be dark against a light piece. And when you put the cherry finish on it, it looks kind of bad. So we were always protective of that as well. So obviously there must have been a lot of SG bodies that were sitting on the body line that were graded for, C grade.
Right. And there you go.
Outlet for that model, So then we did it and look at it, So a lot of times the necessity and stuff that we had in the plant became ideas for these models. Hey, we got to do something, with this. And hey, we've got a lot of these piling up. What can we do with them?
Yep.
Sometimes we ran, guitars that were only certain colors. And they'd be not capable of going that color. So we wouldn't throw it out. What would you do with it? So, if you go through plant tours of the plant, you see at the body line, there's piles of bodies on carts and pallets.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And that's just because hues built up of stuff that didn't make it or, wasn't fit the bill for the specifications. So a lot of those things became like, hey, the body line supervisor would be like, I sure do have a lot of these, there's nothing wrong with them. I'd like to
You guys figure out something what to do with this?
Yeah, we bound them already and we did all this work and we don't want to really lose it, Okay, let's do something with it. So, we always had our hands on every department, I being from quality control department had a lot of, eyes in the sky. Basically, I knew what was going on all over the whole plant,
Right.
Where everything was happening, what was piling up, what wasn't making it, what wasn't going, what did we have trouble with, and some of that we just fix it, that would determine, oh, well, we need a new fixture here, hey, let's come up with something new and go to George and Keith and Corey or Magoo and Harvey and come up with something, Those guys were really smart guys and, they could figure it out. So we'd always come up with something.
Yep.
And if it wasn't, like you said, Chris Roberts, like, hey, let's paint it this color, and
again,
be like,
it was, I mean, we talked about the faded SG in a previous episode. It was Chris just going, hey man, what do you think about this? Like those ideas came from everywhere and no one was protective of their position or their title. Like, dude, we were all in it together.
It was us against the world at that point,
So anyway, so that's the backstory, at least, of the origin of the Guitar of the Week program and how Frank and I had to tackle it. And it was literally everybody else in that plant had to get on board with it. We had to work together, or else it would have been a disaster because we never did anything like this, and we didn't have a lot of time to figure it out. It was pretty stressful too.
I mean, we traveled all over. We met with suppliers. We had to go to talk to people and like, hey, can you do this? Hey, we have this idea. Can you do these parts? Can you plate them? Whether we went to Steve at Advanced or somebody to like, hey, can you do these parts? And a
lot of Seymour involvement,
right,
and Larry DiMarzio too in a couple of models. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff because we wanted to push the boundaries, We wanted to get into work with Larry Fishman and those guys. And And like 400-piece runs was kind of good for anything like that. We were co-branding because, we just need them to make 400 worth. I don't need them to go into production and do anything. I just need a single order kind of thing,
Yep.
So,
Yep.
But yeah, it was intriguing and it was fun. I remember enjoying doing it, coming up with stuff that we could do and trying to explain it to people. Who's Tom Morgan? And we'll get into who Tom is.
Hey,
later,
what's funny is I've seen a video where people have identified Tom Morgan as an artist who worked for like Marvel Comics.
Right, yeah, there was another famous artist
like,
named Tom
no,
Morgan.
that wasn't Tom. Different Tom.
Yeah, different Tom Morgan. Yeah.
It's funny how people try to fill in the blanks. Every Tom Morgan owner just probably latched onto that going, oh my God, my guitar's worth 3 times what I paid for it.
Yeah, right?
Now.
Gibson made a guitar for me, signature model.
Yeah. So anyway, the launch at NAMM was hugely successful. And it was, I don't think a week went by where a dealer or distributor was asking, hey man, can you give me a sneak peek on what's coming next? Like everybody wanted to see what was coming next so they can hoard, and I think there were some models that GC did say, we're taking all 400 of them.
Yeah, that number 400 was small enough for the bigger guys like GC and Yamato and those guys to get them all.
Yeah.
And we really was trying to discourage that.
Yeah.
Honestly, because we wanted everybody to be able to get them. But at the end of the line, we got to sell guitars. So if they wanted them all and they had the checkbook for it, sure, And it gets crazier as it goes along for sure.
Yep. So over the next few weeks, Frank and I, or next few episodes, we'll cover the rest of the Guitar of the Week models and how we came up with that and all of our strategies and stories behind them, because it's always a cool story for each model. Hey, in the meantime, Frank and I have an email address. It's behindtheheadstock@gmail.com. You guys have been great reaching out to us with questions. Send us episode ideas or general comments, or if you want to see us have a special person on, please let us know. We're all ears. We appreciate you guys watching, so we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for watching.
Go Behind the Headstock with Kevin and Frank. 2 ex-Gibson employees talking about guitars and the guitar industry with an inside perspective.